All right, Chubby, we are back another week talking about a subject that I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is how to build trust with your audience. I think that's something that is a cornerstone of any online brand. If you don't have trust, you're not going to get sales. People aren't going to hand over their dollars if they don't believe that you're somebody who can actually deliver on your promise. So I wanted to talk about it
Absolutely.
today. Like, who has trust? How did they get it? And how can you get it for yourself and build it with your audience?
And why is it so important to prioritize it in this age of distrust and mistrust and misconception and people having discernment towards all kinds of things, people having burnt by bad offers and bad coaches? I do believe that what we need to truly focus on and prioritize is becoming a person of trust in its, all shapes and forms.
Yeah, it's I mean, people talk about how much there's a lack of transparency online, right? I think there's so many online creators now. There's so many businesses that are solely online, and the marketing strategies sometimes are questionable, right? And so people, I think, feel a little overwhelmed by different sources of, trying to grab for their attention. And I think they kind of want to tune it all out. It just becomes noise at one point. So it's figuring out how to communicate with your audience and how to make them aware that you're different, that you're somebody who is trying to deliver on whatever problem you're seeking to solve for them, that you're somebody who's interested in being of service rather than somebody who's just necessarily like out for conversion and trying to win at the sales game. Um, and I've talked about this before. I think that's something I've noticed, that there's an overrepresentation of people who have sales backgrounds and marketing backgrounds in the online space. Those are the ones doing business. Those are the ones that tend to succeed. You look at people like, and Alex Hormozy or something, and, those types of people in the creator community are like the quintessential salesman in a sense. I think somebody like Russell Brunson with like ClickFunnels, those types of people have sales backgrounds and they do well. But they're the loudest voices, right? They're overrepresented. And I think there's a lot of people who are talented, who are skilled, who have a lot to say, a lot to offer, but haven't quite figured out how to crack that code of building trust, getting attention, and converting people into customers.
Right. I think it all really truly starts with understanding your market, right? What is available? What other options does your ideal client have? So many of us, we are so, obviously we are thinking about our own experience and when it comes to being a creator, but you're not the only option your ideal client is considering, especially if it's a more serious kind of person, more committed one, which is obviously the person we want to work with. They might be window shopping. They might be looking at other offers, which one suits them, fits, which one is a better fit. So trust in the person itself, I do believe isn't enough, because I'm sure you trust multiple people in the online space, but you wouldn't spend a dime on their programs, even though you trust them, as you would look at them as someone transparent and honest and authentic. But that doesn't mean you're going to spend money on their offers, right? No one is going to spend money on someone's offer because they trust them, but because they have a problem that they want to solve. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, that's true. I think what you're referring to, I look at as authority. I think people are aware of problems they have. Sometimes there are problems that they're not aware of, that they're made aware of by people online, and they think, oh wow, like that's actually a problem I do have. I'd like to get some help solving that. But they need to believe that the person communicating to them is the person capable of helping deliver that transformation to solve that problem. And you're absolutely right. There's plenty of people who we see online and we think, oh, this seems like a nice, honest person, but I don't really think this is the person who's going to be able to help me get to where I want to be.
Absolutely. And there can be all kinds of different reasons for that, right? It could be just misaligned values. It could be just because they have cats and I'm a dog person, or because they talk to women and you're a man. So obviously you love the person themselves, but the offer isn't meant for you, which I think we all need to take into consideration. So in terms of authority, I love to talk about demand, as in we must absolutely build a demand for our offer using our content, using our messaging, our funnels, our bridges, as I talked about it before. That's how we call them in MySpace. But we must build a demand for the offer, as in we need to build trust, not just in the creator, in ourselves, in us, but also in our ability to deliver the solution. Because if the person who is deep in their problem, ready to pay, doesn't know or doesn't have this subconscious demand, the belief that you can actually qualified, that you are actually qualified and perceived to be able to deliver, they won't buy.
Yeah. So in the creator community, there's people that I know I've bought from. And the reason I created my course, I was reverse engineering who are these people that I bought things from? Like, what did they do in order to convince me that they were somebody to invest in or to, hand over money to and help solve a problem? So, we look at top creators in the community, and I started this call by saying, like, who has trust? And we can name people, like some of the people I bought courses from, like Dan Coe is somebody I bought from. A guy named Parker Walbeck, who started Full-Time Filmmaker. I bought a couple of his courses, and that school is now run by Landon, by the way. And those guys do a good job. And so, I think part of it is my belief is the way that you build trust is by continuing to deliver value for people. It's like if you offer something free and it solves a tiny little problem for them, then they're going to believe that you can help with bigger problems. And if you articulate the problem well, then they're going to believe that you have the solution. So that's what I think what those guys did for me. Like when I read some of Dan's writing, I felt like he was explaining something that I already knew and believed, but he was saying it in a way that I found to be profound and powerful. And when I looked at like Full-Time Filmmakers website and saw all of the videos and the different skills that these guys had as videographers, I thought like, okay, these guys seem like somebody to learn from. They also had the reputation given like the number of students they had, the testimonials, so sometimes I think it takes a village to build trust as well. But these are just kind of talking through it. These are examples of, people that I talk about in my course, and for that reason, it's that I bought stuff from them. Is the reason
Right. I mean, it's a great way to look at, to model the people that we tend to vibe with, that we tend to buy from, and see, why do we trust them, right? Is it because of their fancy picture perfect Instagram post of their holidays in the Maldives, or because they actually show up, they tell you the truth, they are not holding back, and they are willing to sacrifice being called out by the wrong people so that you know the truth, or you know what you need to hear, so you buy. For example, that's something I love. Like I myself also, with my own students, I'm not there to make them comfortable. I'm there to push them right off the cliff. I'm there to really make sure I bring the best out of them, because that's one of the reasons they sign up. So I'm naturally attracted to the type of creators who also don't just like smile in my face and they say that they believe in me, that you could do it, but the ones that actually push me off the edge.
Yeah, it's sorry, I looked over at some of the messages that people joined on the other thing. Hosting is challenging.
The important of this, and I think this is a bit overlooked. So if anyone's watching this, try to reflect on this now. How much are you aware of the business values that you're communicating, or not just business, the values you're communicating throughout your messaging? Not directly saying like, yes, I'm a person of courage, or let's do this or do that. But how do you subconsciously communicate all kinds of values or core values that you allow your ideal client to connect to you based upon? Because a huge part of what builds a personal business, what a personality-based business or a personal brand, is that we have shared values. You're a lot more likely to trust someone who is like-hearted, like-minded, have several core values that you guys share. And I think that's a very overlooked part of messaging and content creation that people don't do intentionally, and they just tend to wing it.
Yeah, because I think there's this belief that when building a personal brand, the idea is be yourself. It's kind of what you're told, right? So people think, well, I shouldn't have to try at being myself because that would be inauthentic. So I'm just going to show up as me, which is oftentimes just an excuse for lack of preparation, really. And so they don't get the results they're hoping for because they don't know how to articulate and communicate what it is they're trying to get out to their audience and transfer that idea to the people viewing. So I do think that takes practice, and I do think that takes effort, preparation, and I think that's part of the process, learning to build an audience and learning to provide services online, because people don't know you, right? Like a lot of times, I don't know about you, but I look at the analytics. I mean, I'm sure you do. I think if you're any serious creator, you do, and the majority of my
that's all about the data. It's all about learning from whatever your audience signals back. So yeah,
the majority of my audience or the reach that I get on most of the platforms, the majority of it is first-time viewers, right? Or non-subscribers. So I think we have to understand that a lot of people, when they see us, we have been working on this for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and we think like everybody knows my collective work, right? But most of these people are seeing you for the first time. So you have a small window to really present yourself, to represent well, and to communicate that idea that you are trying to solve and convert them into a believer. So I think, like I said, I think that takes practice and time really, because I know,
like we talked about before, it takes reiterations, it takes experimenting, testing.
Yeah. I messaged you yesterday because I know for myself, I spent time on X when I first got into creating again last year, and I built up some relationships on that platform, and I started to venture out into places like LinkedIn and others, and it takes time. There's a bit of like a lull when you enter a new frontier or a new platform, and you have to show up. You have to be consistent. You have to stay, I think, on brand so people understand what you're about, and that building that trust with this new audience, it's going to take time. It doesn't just transfer over like immediately.
Right. I mean, I also want to add that it doesn't mean that someone with 50 followers, if their messaging is on point, cannot, invite someone on a call and then get clients. If someone it's all about really being truly in service and making sure that we don't hold back or don't let our follower count or engagement or anything else hold us back, because your ideal client, if it's like truly communicated, doesn't care about how many followers you have. If you speak in a way that they know this guy gets me, you make them feel seen and heard, doesn't matter. So anyone listening, your follower count 2025, where every piece of your content in most algorithms is individually sent out doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you said, if you're a cat person or a dog person, I know some of my early customers came to me because they had software engineering backgrounds, and that was my background. They identified with me and thought, oh, if this guy went from software into this, like, I think this is a guy to show me how to move into this. So it's important, I think, to share your story, because you're right, with the For You feed now, people don't just get a slew of people they follow showing up in their feed. They get targeted interests and demographics like that they're put into the and therefore the people that they're seeing are going to be very targeted. So you might not have the audience that people were able to attract years ago. I think we're finding that people are having smaller audiences, hopefully I think more attentive audiences than in years past. But I think you don't need that huge audience. You just need to communicate well and attract the right people.
And make sure that your audience doesn't just stay on rented land and trusts you enough to get off social media, which I think is where it all starts.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people talk about building a newsletter, right? Or gathering emails, however you want to look at that. But a lead, the way I've adopted, like the description of that and the definition being someone who you can contact, right? So if you have their email address, if you can message them on any platform, like through DM, then that is somebody who's a potential lead, right? So I think email, if someone gives you their email, that's a vote of confidence, right? I don't know about you, but I find email, like newsletter building, audience building in that respect, challenging. I think people are more guarded than they were in years past. I think people, when they were, offered to sign up for a blog or newsletter years ago, 5-10 years ago, it seemed like there weren't that many out there. And so they would follow people who was like in a particular niche that they were interested in. But now there's just dozens and dozens of people in each niche, hundreds or if not thousands. So they, I think, are less likely to subscribe until you've really stuck around for a while and they're like, okay, this guy, this girl, she's been coming up in my feed a lot. I'm liking these videos and this content. I'll give it a shot. But right. I think it takes longer than it used to, if I'm being honest.
And also, I don't think people spend as much time reading emails as before. Like if I look at myself, I know like 85-90% of my emails are unopened. Not because I'm not necessarily interested, but it's because I get I don't know, 50, 100 different emails a day. And I know that when, for example, I have, I love a few creators or I love to read their newsletters or things like subject line or anything else kind of grabs my attention, then when I have time, I'm going to read it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to read every single newsletter the way they are sent on the exact day. So I think consumption also changed.
Yeah, agreed. It's information overload, I think, because I'm with you. I have subscriptions to people who I really like, and I fall behind, and I think I'm going to get back to that email later, and I often don't get around to it. But that's, I think, one of the reasons why you have to be consistent if you're building an audience, and you have to keep putting content out there, because eventually I think you break through to people. Like maybe it's not until the 5th or 6th email, maybe they fell behind on your newsletter, but eventually you have a title or something that gets them to immediately open it. And I think that can sometimes just crack things open for you with that particular individual. So I think you have to just keep showing up. That's a big part of it.
And showing up in a way that you don't disappoint people, because the worst you could do, the biggest disservice, is when you send out an email and you're wasting their time writing an email about something that they don't see as value. And that's also important, because many times what creators believe is value isn't necessarily value to the audience. So making sure that, again, we use our content as research and see, okay, if that seems to be resonating, and can dedicate a newsletter to this because they told me that it's perceived to be value. So I know how many times I get upset when I open the email because it's got a catchy subject line, and it doesn't really, like, I don't care if you're sipping on your cafe in a rice field in Bali or something. Like, that's not value.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier.
If it's
Oh, sorry.
connected through a story, or we weave your personality or personal stories into something, totally. But that's not why people open newsletters.
Yeah, there's been a culture of selling the dream. I mean, it goes back years ago to like TV infomercials and things, right? Like, I don't know if there's any fans out there of the movie Wolf of Wall Street, but like toward the end, they depict him as kind of getting into that whole like online, or not online, infomercial sales of selling like video series on tape back in the day. And that's kind of what you've seen happen online. I think there's a lot of that, selling this dream lifestyle, this like just outrageous outcome. Like, you can start your own business. I mean, you look on YouTube, you can start your own business and make, according to some of these guys, $1 million in 90 days.
Yeah, print money.
Yeah. How I got 1 million followers, and how I make $100,000 a month, and you can do it with my program in 30 days or less, right? It's just, it gets more and more outrageous because they have to kind of try to outdo one another on the titles, and it's like, I reference movies a lot.
It's a race for people's attention, but what, again, they don't realize is, when you get my attention and you don't deliver on that, you already burnt your bridges, at least when it comes to how I consume content.
Yeah. I was just laughing to myself because
to realize the audiences, there's so many people who have been burned. The marketplace is different. People have their own natural BS meter, so they know when someone is like, so who are you targeting? Are you targeting those that we call the unconscious incompetents, who are like, oh, so I can just print money and like get like 1 million in 90 days? I'm gonna click and see that video. When what truly matters is to make sure that people don't have that shame around where they are in life, how far behind, or anything else they experience. Because a lot of the reasons people may not invest is because they have shame around things that they struggle with. So what I always say, and a huge proponent of transparency, is saying you can get the millions, you can build a 7, 8, 9-figure business. If other people have done it, you can. If you want, there are ways. And as a coach, I'm always happy to support whoever comes to me and says, this is my goal, but that doesn't mean that it has to be, that it's going to be in 90 days, that it's going to be this way or that way, because that's just so unpredictable. And you set your client up for unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, and right. And I think that's the opposite of what we're trying to discuss here today, building trust, right? I think that's how you break trust. That's how you burn bridges. That's how an entire industry
and
get a bad name.
Word travels fast. Like, you burn bridges with one person, that's gonna get in front of a bunch of people. Reddit, and I don't know what other platforms they do this, but people are going to talk about you.
Yeah. And as someone who's trying to build entirely online, if that's you, you're entirely relying on your reputation online. It's not like you get foot traffic if you're a brick and mortar, right? Like, you are going to live and die by your reputation online. So you should protect it, and you should make sure that you underpromise and overdeliver rather than the inverse. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think what else can we talk about? I had something in mind and then I lost it, but yeah, I was just saying that I think you can end up burning an entire industry. Like we see that, like Money X, for instance, got a really bad name because I'm not sure
X in general.
X in general. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was, I think Money Twitter was what they called it even before like it became X.
I don't even know
And
what that means, honestly.
you don't. Well, it's kind of this like, it's this kind of this tribe, right, of people kind of DMing one another, trying to, get a sale like through cold DMs.
Yeah, from what I heard, those people don't just DM one another, they actually buy each other's courses so they can take a screenshot and then refund it and then post it as this is how much I made. So it's not just DMs over there. I think it's, again, everything is around like the Dunning-Kruger effect. So there are so many people at the beginning stages of their business. They have been told, they've been sold the silver bullet, just start creating videos, post online, connect with people, and you're gonna make the bank. You're gonna break the bank. You can retire your parents when you're still at like 18 or whatever. And they see some people, I don't know if they're faking it or not, we don't really know this at this point, I think, and it's gonna be a lot harder with VO3 and everything else going out. But people have been sold this, right? The dream again. Like you can just be 15, you could just quit high school, start editing videos, and you're gonna be a millionaire. When what was I gonna say with this? Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of the unconscious, incompetent people in every market who leverage what they can do, which is grab attention, right? Fake Stripe screenshots, basic, very simplistic content that, because the majority of people are surface level, I'm just gonna say it out loud, they enjoy surface level content, they fall for lies, and they don't have a very strong BS meter, they are out of tune with their intuition, so many other things. People who I think both of us speak to, purpose-driven, heart-centered entrepreneurs who are over this unconscious incompetence stage, who truly want to help, who truly want to make a difference, struggle with both grabbing attention because they don't want to just come across fear-mongering, selling lies, or sharing something that, they get the accolades for, the likes, the engagement, but nothing else, virality and stuff like that. And I think that's what every marketplace looks like right now. A lot of the more experienced people who have the knowledge, also because of a lack of connection in their messaging, because they are so far away in their mastery, plus because there are a lot more people who are in that unconscious, incompetent category. A lot of people struggle.
Yeah. I think the people you're talking about, the heart-centered, or the people who are mission-driven, I think there's a distinction between, or that they struggle with, is this chasm between connection and conversion. When the relationship is about connection, I think they thrive because that's where they feel the best. Like that's where they feel human. That's where they feel like there's reciprocity there. They're getting to know someone. And then if it switches to a sale, it kind of changes the dynamic and becomes about a conversion. And I don't think it feels the same. And I've experienced this myself. It's like if you're friendly with someone and then they start to try to sell you something, it can sometimes be upsetting. And I think people who are heart-centered, they don't want to upset other people in that way that they've been upset. So I think that's where there's a struggle for people to.
I mean, there's money stories that I think people need to dig deeper into. I myself, this is a lifelong journey of mine, being having generations of immigrant perfectionistic German farmers who moved to Hungary 300-400 years ago, and all of that is coded in my DNA. So if anyone, I know what it feels like to take off the layers, but there's so much around, even like in the spiritual community, people who truly feel abundant, but they may not have the millions in the bank account. And I'm not saying everybody should have, because it's everybody's own choice, but there's a lot of wound around money. There's a lot of issues around receivership, a lot of issues around, I don't want to come across salesy or scammy or slimy when selling. If we truly understand what it is, selling is service. Receiving is the biggest blessing you can ever have. So we need to get into the practice of charging our worth, because the amount of money you make has got nothing to do with the value you create. It's got to do with the value, your value. So if you value your value, that means you're charging for your value.
Yeah, I agree with that in theory. And then we're starting to see some people out there offer courses and coaching in particular, about how to up your offer. So they'll say, oh, you're struggling not because your offer is too high, but because it's too low. Like, you can sell the same product that you're selling for $500 for $5,000 and be making way more money, get better customers, have better outcomes. And it's the only thing you're missing is it's priced too low. So, I mean, what is your answer to that? Like, if somebody were to take your idea and kind of run with it in that direction, what's the antidote for that?
I mean, everyone can make their own choice. That's always the first. Like, I'm not going to push my own agenda on anybody. And anybody who does that is not a coach. They are just consultants or strategists or anything else. But I think this is also a huge part of this money story around the fact that, oh, I just want to like help people and make my business affordable for everyone. What right do you have in deciding what people perceive as value, how much money they are willing to pay for one thing or the other? That's my first question, right? You don't have the right to look into someone else's wallet and say, this is valuable to you. This is how much you will pay because you come from XYZ country, XYZ social layer, or anything else. They can make a decision if they, for example, want to take a loan out so they can pay for something. That's another thing. So many times what I see with especially people who are more conscious entrepreneurs or spirituals, they want to help everyone. Maybe because they used to struggle a lot in the past, they want to make therapy or coaching more available to people. But the truth is, when someone values something and they are willing to pay for it, you're not just actually helping them by making it hurt a little bit, like, this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm gonna pay it. That's when the magic happens. At least that's what I tend to tell my students. When you want to give back, which is what everything, abundance is all about, the way you give back into, well, the way you are part of the circle of abundance is by making it a stretch, by making it sure that the message is, I'm committed. I'm going to do this. I've been sitting on this for years and I'm struggling right now because what I did got me to a certain situation. So now here's my money, here's my attention, and here's my full commitment. That's what I would say. So we both know that the higher we charge for something, the more people pay, the more attention people pay, which is something we cannot miss. So if anyone wants to help and make things more available, it's important to balance this out, because who says I cannot charge someone, I don't want to say the numbers, but like, in the 4 or 5 digits, and then donate 5-6 digits every year so I can build schools, so I can contribute to an whatever cause. And this way, I truly become a person who earns money, who uses my business to build a money machine, because your business itself, that's another topic for another one, another live, but your business itself cannot be sustainable as a money generating machine. That's when you truly become abundant and build a purpose driven business.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to take in there. I think what you said is often summed up as one needs skin in the game. And I think I believe that. I know that if you're invested, you put more time and attention into that thing. Look at the emails that we mentioned earlier, the newsletters. When they're free and they're just kind of coming in, maybe I'll get around to them, maybe I won't. But if you spent a certain amount of money on those emails, you're going to make sure that you get your money's worth. You're going to make sure that you read them and that, you've invested now in that. So you want to make sure that you get return on that investment. I think there's still a level of skepticism that people have when they hear that type of messaging. People think, oh, okay, like you're priming me for the sale later. You're telling me that I need skin in the game so that when you tell me the price and I balk, you are going to say, remember we talked about earlier, you need skin in the game. I mean, I've seen that on like YouTube stories. I've seen people talk about how they put money on a credit card to take to join some mastermind or take some course, and they were dead broke, and now they're multimillionaires, and that one mastermind just set the trajectory of their life to where they are now. And that's part of their origin story, so that when later they bring up, oh, join my mastermind for $5,000, and the person looks at like their bank account and they can't afford it, think, I guess I have to use my credit card like this person did. So I think that's like where the skepticism comes in. People feel like they're being sort of groomed for that later sale in the process. But the psychology is real. There's having skin in the game. So it's like this balance. You have to decide, I guess, for yourself, like, do you want to invest or not? Like I wish we could.
Also, as a creator, you need to get used to the fact that people will tell you that you're expensive. People will have skepticism. People will complain that you are doing a sales page, on a free event that you, whatever. So I've seen this. I've just signed up for a program which has been super powerful. Like, if anyone has never done nervous system regulation, highly recommend it. Super powerful. But in the free event that then led into this program, people were already complaining, like, oh, but this looks like a sales page in like the first 20 minutes. And then what we need to realize is that I'm running a business. So if someone comes in and I give them access to my knowledge, my years of experience, and I really build a valuable free event, paid event, or anything else that for me took 10 years, 15 years, I don't know how many dollars to accumulate and put it into a streamlined, concise event. If you want to complain about me talking about an invitation to something more for people who want more, then that's not my business, right? There's obviously stories around that in the person's mind who may not see the value. Again, what we talk about here is that you cannot charge for something you half-ass, right? So if you create a program, a webinar, a masterclass, you don't have the right to charge high ticket if it's not valuable, obviously. But it's not that obvious, I know, for many people. But if someone has a problem with that, that's like, you don't have control over how other people value something. What you have control over is to communicate the value throughout your messaging.
Yeah. And perhaps you attracted the wrong audience, right? Or that individual, at least. And that'll happen. No matter who you are, you're going to get people that wander in that are not really your ideal target demographic. I had on one of my YouTube videos, I had this 3-minute video. I kind of talk about the where I saw the creator economy going, how people selling online, I imagine, to be eventually prioritized because they're generating revenue through the platform. And at the end, I mentioned my course. I had somebody comment like, "Oh, this guy, is just trying to sell his course and made it." I think he said something about scammy or something like that. And I kind of thought to myself, like, that's so funny because my course is designed to be the exact opposite of that. Like, I see myself as the antithesis of that. And even still, you're going to get people who associate you with people that you see yourself nothing like at all. So I guess you can't control what people think. You just have to put yourself out there, and that's part of being a
So if
creative.
you lose your reputation, gonna bring me down as well. I'm kidding.
I mean, anybody, you go to my YouTube, like watch the videos. Like I'm not trying to scam anyone. It's just it's crazy like that.
I mean, I think a huge part of building this personality-based business is getting comfortable with being seen. I mean, visibility is still a huge subconscious, the fear of visibility, the fear of being seen, being exposed is still a huge, I think, abundance block and money block for many people. Because there's truly an abundance of people who have the likelihood to afford even 300 plus programs. It's really truly the question of, are you putting yourself out there? Are you promoting yourself in front of people? Are you using the right strategies to meet people where they are at and not just focus on what you say or how you say it, which is traditionally what people say copywriting and copy and messaging is, but where you say it. I'm not going to be able to convert someone by posting a 3-minute mini masterclass on the importance of XYZ when it's way too advanced for someone to consume on social media where people just randomly swipe on stuff. So where you say what you say in your funnel is super important. Again, building trust.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what social media tends to serve best as is a way of getting attention and then getting people to another platform, like you said, your own, where there's a webinar or something where you can go deeper, your blog, a newsletter, because you can't get that much attention on those platforms. You're not going to get typically, minutes. Like with people, you get seconds. But I think that's why a lot of people like YouTube now. That long form, you get two different types of audiences with like short form and long form. You get people who are scrolling with the short form, mostly, as I said earlier, people who don't subscribe to you. And then with the long form, you're going to find you get people who stick around. You get people who like to consume topics more in depth, and they're going to give you
for the topics you talk about. That's an important part.
I didn't hear that. What was that you said?
Yeah, you get people who may be searching for the specific topics that you talk about, right? YouTube is one of the few platforms where people actively search for educational stuff, for helping them solve a problem.
Yeah. That's killed me about Instagram. I never really understood why they didn't implement any type of search engine, because oftentimes
they say they do, but I don't think of it.
No, if you see something in your feed, try to find it again the next day if you haven't saved it. I mean, it's near impossible. But I think that's probably by design now, especially as the For You feed has taken over the internet and social media. They're trying to continuously serve you up something novel. Novelty is king right now. So I don't think they're necessarily trying to get you into the habit of searching on the platform. Yeah, they want you kind of doing what's the equivalent of old school channel surfing, really. People go on there, they don't really know what they're looking for, and they kind of just surf through the feed, and it's just like a distraction, and it keeps you kind of locked on there.
Yeah, I think especially with this like AI stuff, everything inundating the market, we can't avoid it. Again, the unconscious, incompetent segment of creators will churn out AI created content, and there's gonna be a point, I believe, when authentic creators will struggle with the amount they would have to keep up to get a little slice of the feeds. It's already happening.
Already happening, yeah. I was like,
yeah, on
it's
Instagram,
already
apparently that's one of the reasons so many people have low reach and stuff like that, because there's more creators coming up. Everybody's spreading this message that entrepreneurship is for everyone, just, whatever. I'm like, I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. Although I do believe in neuroscience and like the plasticity of our brain, but we should definitely not promote the fact that entrepreneurship is for every single person in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be gained from the freedom and autonomy of being able to provide for yourself. It's kind of like being able to hunt. People who have been given jobs their entire life, I think, are more dependent, and I've counted myself in that camp for a long time. It's like now I'm kind of venturing out into the wild and of business and having to like learn how to, hunt and be able to eat what I kill, in a sense. And I think that is empowering. So I encourage people to explore that, whether it's a side hustle, if you want to call it that, or just like a little, side project business thing where you get a little, passive income. But I think it's empowering to know that you can earn money for yourself if you need to. Like if, say, you lost your job, then okay, well, I can lean into that little side business I've got. I know how to earn dollars for myself. I don't need to ask somebody else to give me a job. So I think that's important. That's why I talk about it so much in my own content. But I agree with you. I think the online space is being overwhelmed by AI content right now. And I think what a lot of people miss is they're creating content that doesn't feel human, in a sense. There's a lot right now being written by creators about overuse and abuse of AI tools. And I think we're becoming more skilled at being able to recognize it when reading it. I think audiences are as well. You're seeing repetitive phrases over and over. You're seeing structures that look identical to how things are written. And it's become more obvious. And I think what a lot of creators are not understanding is when they come onto the platform and they post recycled quotes, they have content that looks very AI generated, says things that are very generic that people could hear from anyone because it was AI generated. They're not standing out from the crowd. They're kind of just blending into this noise. And I don't believe in the long term you're going to be seen as any type of authority, any type of thought leader in your niche if you do that, because it's so cheap. It's the old hard is now easy, and like the old impossible is now hard. And so you need to try to do the new hard. And just putting up a Canva screenshot or a billboard of something with a quote that you read from some other author is not going to make you be seen as any type of authority.
Yes.
Having cheap AI generated content isn't going to do that. The people who are leaders in any type of space, think about who they are. They're authors. They're people who wrote books, or at least like published a book under their name. And those people, you think of like a Mark Manson, you think of Tim Ferriss, you think of like James Clear, the list goes on. And they're all people who are quoted all the time and referenced, and they
already quoted like ancient philosophers.
Right. If you want to go further, right, they're just recycling kind of older ideas. But look, I'm not going to say we all need to have new ideas, right? It's hard to like have a new idea.
It's less about the new ideas. It's truly, and I've been in the online adult education industry for long enough to know enough about the neuroscience of communication, the neuroscience of teaching, is that what ultimately also builds trust and helps you stand out is the way you teach. because we live in times when people who are more committed, the people you want to speak to, they will look things up. They kind of know what their problems are, or they explain it to AI that will give them some sort of ideas. It's not the lack of information that they have, it's the lack of consciously knowing what they unconsciously hold themselves back from experiencing. So how do I say it easy or simpler? Revelation of what truly holds them back, right? Or a belief that somehow is hidden somewhere that they are not willing to see despite all the information out there. So when we create content, at least the way I teach it in my messaging membership, is focusing a lot more on perspective shifting or revealing to people that this is what you have difficulties with. When I post, majority of posts are like that, especially on X. It's very common. It's like a I agree fest, basically. Somebody posts something like, yeah, discipline is really important to like build, and then you have like 100 comments saying, yes, totally agree. That's not gonna bring in people, like potential clients. When you say things like, if you can't spend more, like if you can't focus on your task for, I don't know, more than 10 minutes or an hour, if you keep delaying whatever launch you have been saying to yourself that you would launch, that you would do X, Y, Z, you aren't disciplined, or the reason your business isn't where it should be is because you aren't disciplined. This kind of tells people, based on what they are aware of, habits and behavior, what they may not even realize, because everything is so automatic in our mind. We agree with a bunch of stuff, the amazing quotes on everything about abundance and how it could be all yours, in a quote on a beautiful picture on Instagram. That doesn't mean that I subconsciously believe the same, which could be the reason I don't have what I want.
Yeah, I think there are tells, right? Inconsistency in messaging, inconsistency in showing up. I think that people will start to doubt that you're, like you said, disciplined. And I think that we seek that in our coaches, right? Because I think we all struggle with it ourselves, no matter who you are, what level you're at. I think we probably believe that we could always be a little more disciplined. So if you're going to hire a coach, you want somebody to hold you accountable, to be more organized and disciplined than you are, so that you can have a clear plan and act on it.
Yeah, or at least someone who knows what's going on in your life, as in speaks to you, assuming that they know you, that they see you, they hear you.
Yeah.
And I think there's no easier way to communicate that you have the solution than specifically and accurately communicating what people currently experience. And it's not just about the problems, it's about the inner dialogues. It's everything that the ideal client experiences right now.
Yeah. We have a comment from Sandra here. It's a long one. I've been up here for a minute. I'm gonna pull it up. It might be a lot to read. It actually looks like it got cut off. It's I don't know if we even get through the whole thing here, but yeah, she kind of talked about trust building. One, the energy behind the message is part of the message. People feel when you're faking it. 2, speak from care, not the craft you're in. 3, allow people to be the opposites. We are all contradictions. Allow others to be both. Name what your clients feel. 5, respect your reader's intelligence. KISS, keep it simple and stupid. Does not count with high quality clients. 6, if you challenge with dignity. Don't call people out / shame them. We're all navigating, I think it says, through. All right. Sorry, Sandra. It's cutting it off here, so we didn't get to read the whole thing. But I'd agree with all those. I think those are good tips. I think she commented on LinkedIn. So if anyone's on LinkedIn and wants to read the whole comment, they can find it there. anything to say to that, Chubby?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into the psychology of building that trust, but it's ultimately going to be coming down to being able to communicate the problem itself, knowing all of its different angles and aspects, and connecting it with the offer itself, because people are laser focused on finding a solution to their problem.
Yeah, I think when you can articulate the problem, precisely, that's when people feel seen. And when people feel seen, they're gonna want you to help them solve that problem.
And
So
many people watching this might assume, yeah, sure, that's what builds trust. But based on what I've seen, like, landing pages and content and everything, sometimes I question, like, is this person's content actually converting? Because I would assume that's just not conversion content, or it doesn't speak to a specific person, or it speaks to the person who is so much in their victim mindset that it's like 80% of people who would not have the means or the willingness to invest, which is also an important part of building trust. I can build trust with all of my audience, but if all of them are, I don't know, in Ethiopia and they can't afford my course, then I'm not going to be able to run a business. I'm running a charity.
Yeah, and that's important. I think we've talked about this in other calls. If you want to scale your business and grow and reach more people and be able to do it full time, you're going to need income to do it, right? So you're going to have to get comfortable with charging people for your time and services.
And communicate, right? Like communicating the value straight up is super important. Majority of people assume that just because they have a mouth, they know how to communicate, but that doesn't always work that way.
No, I mean, it's great doing these calls because I watch them back and, I'm trying to improve on my communication skills, but it takes practice. And, I encourage people to start sooner rather than later because your ideas aren't going to come out as clearly as you think in the beginning. Yeah. All right. We got just a couple minutes left. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we can wrap up by just like summing it up. The whole thing is all around making sure that we focus on transparency and how we can claim our own unique perspective in a space, and just being oblivious to the haters, the people who think we are expensive or anything else, because the only way you can truly build a purpose-driven business is when it truly comes from you. Say, this is what I want to build. That's obviously isn't everything, because we do need to look at the data, the numbers, the offers, the audience's responses. But building trust starts with you stepping into your most authentic version of yourself and not holding yourself back because of being seen by the wrong people.
Yeah. I know from my own experience, it feels like I'm peeling back layers, years and years of programming, and feel like I'm showing up more as myself each week. So it's a process. It takes time, I think, to really find yourself in all of this.
So guys, watch Andrew dancing on tables within like 2 years from now, half naked.
That's where you see this going for me?
I'm just kidding.
I hope not. It sounds pretty dark. But anyway, yeah. So that's my advice, is just start sooner rather than later and really explore yourself.
And I think this AI revolution is gonna bring this out. Like the people who are willing to take the courage, who are truly willing to take courage, willing to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail, basically try, and build a truly human-like business, or human business that feels like human, that's empathetic, that showcases community building, leadership, everything that AI cannot do better than humans. You are on the winning end.
I agree. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for everyone who
Awesome.
joined us. And yeah, we do this call weekly. So we've been playing around with different times, but I think this time works. So, Thursdays at 9:30 Pacific time. So we should be back at that same time next week. But I'll post some information about it throughout the week.
Yeah. And anyone
which I
watching
haven't
the
been.
replay, if you guys have any questions, we are on our YouTube channel, so we're happy to answer.
Yeah, comment there, and we will see them and can respond. All right, Chubby, thanks again.
Pleasure
Good to
as
see you.
usual.